Hello. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. All right, so Sky, I just got done watching your video on Seesaw, and you asked three really awesome questions. I bet you think you only asked two, but you actually asked three. The first question you asked was, why does it crinkle up like that when I put my sprout in front of it? Well, good question. If something were to kind of get, I don't know, just thrown in front of your face or dropped on you, you have something called reflexes, right? So, like if something were to jump out at you like that, it makes you blink and jump back. Well, a worm kind of does the same thing. If something gets in front of it too quickly, because remember, it's only a nervous system. It didn't see it or hear it or smell it coming, but its nervous system sensed danger, and that is an automatic reflex for it to coil up and protect itself, okay? So it's kind of like how some people or animals would get into like a what they call a fetal position where they tuck their knees and their arms up and they tuck their head in, all right, and that kind of it protects the animal. So that's the reason why when you were going near your worm with your sprout, it would coil up like that, because it didn't know what that was, and it was moving fast and it could sense that. That's how sensitive their nervous system is, and that's why it curled up into like a little ball like thing. The next question you asked was, hold on, gotta think. Do the worms have feet? Actually, no, not feet. Hair. Actually, they do. I don't think our eyes are strong enough or powerful enough to see the little hairs on the worm's underbelly, without the use of like a really strong microscope or something, because the hairs are very small. But the hairs are actually something that the worm uses to help them crawl, which the way that you showed me how the worm moves was really good. You did this. You went, which is exactly what they do. Their head goes first. So I'm going to pretend that this is the worm's head, okay? And then I'm going to pretend that this is the worm's body, right? And then the head would up and stretch, and then the rest of the body catches up, and then up and stretch, and the rest of the body catches up. Okay? So that's how the worm moves. The head leads, right? The head leads, and a lot of times, a lot of the worms that we were looking at in here, the worm would actually lift his head up, stretch its body out, and then come back down, and then the rest of the body would come back to meet. And some, the worm would just kind of slither, staying on the table, and just go like that. So, and the little hairs that are on the underbelly of the worm actually do help the worm move. So, good question. And your last question, hold on. You asked about the coiling in. You asked about, do the worms have hair? And then, oh dear, what did you say next? Oh dear. It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, you did ask some really good questions, and now I'm really upset with myself because I knew I should have written them down. What else you asked? Oh, I just watched it too. That's bad. I already forgot your question. Okay, it'll come back to me. But anyway, you did a really good job observing. Oh, the clitellum! Yes! Okay, you asked me why you can't see the clitellum on the baby worm, and you answered your own question. Yes, I'm so proud of you. That is what scientists do. Scientists ask questions, but then they also try to answer their own questions with some logical thinking. You can't see the clitellum, probably not because it's not there. I'm sure it's there, even though I'm not even entirely sure if they have a clitellum at that young age. Again, that's something that Mrs. Lewis is going to have to do. Maybe get a magnifying glass. That's something that you could do too, because you have a magnifying glass. And look at that little baby worm really close under some good light. under the magnifying glass, and maybe you will be able to see a clitellum. Now, it's easier to see the clitellum when the worm is not stretched out. So when the worm is kind of just sitting still and relaxed, that's going to be the best time to see if that little baby worm has a clitellum. But to answer your question right now, the reason why you probably can't see it is probably because it's so small. I mean, it's hard to see the clitellum on the adult size worms. So it's going to be even harder to see the clitellum on a little baby worm. But I do think that they have one, but they might not. Maybe it is something that develops over time. So I'm going to charge you with that investigation. And I want you to see if you can find out, maybe with the use of a magnifying glass or maybe you have a microscope. I don't know. And see if you can see a clitellum on the little worm that side. Just be really careful to not hurt the worm because we need the worms. Okay, so I also saw your post on Seesaw about what do worms need to live. Okay, you said, and I wrote it down, you said they need food, they need air, they need water, they need space, and they need dirt. Okay? So, we are going to create a worm jar. All you need is a jar with a lid with holes in it. I kind of have these fancy schmancy ones that like a science company sends me. So, but anybody can make these. You just need a jar with a lid and holes in the top. Okay? We're going to make a worm jar. And how are we going to make the worm jar? By giving the worms all the things they need in order to live. Okay? So, you said that worms need food. Now, you watched a video today on the virtual classroom, and we're going to read some more books and everything about the types of things that worms eat for food. And in your little worm cup that I sent you, you might have also noticed that there are some scraps of food inside the dirt that's in that cup. Okay, I know that I used to give them a lot of eggshells. I know that I used to give them like onions and onion peels and stuff like that. So you might have seen some of those things in your dirt. Okay, that's the worm's food. I had to go scrounge around here looking for things, and I found a banana peel. Okay, so that's food, and it goes. I also found, which I learned that this is something that worms like a lot, is coffee grounds. So mom and dad, if you're coffee drinkers, maybe, and you can put the filter right in there too, they will scrumptious that right up. So coffee, just to show you that this is not dirt. These are, in fact, coffee grounds. Here's the coffee filter. Coffee grounds, boop, into the jar it goes. Okay, so food, yes, all living things, fish, birds, beavers, trees, plants, every animal, every person, every living thing on this planet needs food. And every living thing on this so what was the first thing we said? Food. Okay. Air. Okay, how are we going to provide air? Well, we're going to have holes in the lid of the jar, right? So that's going to make sure that the animal that goes in this has plenty of air. Okay? All right. Food, air, water. Okay? I have some water. All right, so we have food, we have air, we have water. Okay? Check, check, check. Food, air, water, space. This is the space. Okay? It's a shelter. It's something to keep it protected. Okay? Food, air, water, space. Those are the 4 things that all living creatures, people, animals, insects, reptiles, you name it, fish, whales, mammals, all of it. Those are the 4 things that every single living thing needs to live. Food, air, water, space. Okay? But you wrote a 5th thing down. You said dirt. Did I put dirt in here? I put food. I provided air. I put water. And the jar is the space. Why aren't I putting dirt in there? Oh, I have more food too. I found more food besides coffee grounds and banana peels. Leaves. Yes. These are leaves that we collected months ago, back in the fall, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to save some of those because I know I need them for the worm jars. So, some leaf litter, they call it, right? Dried up leaves. Might be kind of hard for you to find leaves. Maybe it's not. Maybe you've got leaves. But they love leaves and grass and all of that stuff. So, I'm going to put some of that in there and crumble it up a little bit. And yes, I'm going to put my worms in here too. But this is a worm jar. Okay? I've provided all the things that my worm will need to be happy, 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 happy. But you wrote 5 things. And really, every single living creature only needs 4. So, I want you to think about that for a minute. Why am I not adding dirt to the worm jar? Pause the video. Have a sense-making discussion. Okay. So did you figure it out? I hope you record your thinking and show me on Seesaw because I'm really dying to know about this whole. So if you haven't done that yet, do it now. Go on to Seesaw, record, tell me why you think I'm not putting dirt in this jar. Okay. Thank you for going on Seesaw and doing that. So, I didn't put dirt in the jar because the worms are the ones that are going to make the dirt. That's what they do. That's what worms do. They will eat all this stuff in here as it decomposes and rots. Okay? They will chew through it, right? And if you look at your worm, right? If you look at your worm and let it stretch out in your hand or on the table, you can see through its body. You can see through its skin, okay? And you can see the food traveling through its body, especially when it stretches and the skin gets really light because its rings or segments are all stretched out. You can see the soil, the food inside the worm. Okay? Yeah, I just said soil because the worm will eat the bananas, will eat the onion peels, will eat the oats. And then as it goes into the worm, it gets digested and turned into soil. Okay? And that soil gets pooped out of the worm. And that's what all that black stuff is. Worm poop. I've had the worms, the very worms that are in your house right now. I've been raising those worms for over a year, and I started them in a worm jar very, very much like this. I might have had, a couple like made apple core. Some newspaper. Newspaper is a good thing to put in here. I might have actually had some grass. Don't give them any conifer, pines or cedars or anything like that. They really like the leaves and the greens. If you have grasses or dried things, newspaper's great, but don't give them any of the conifer piney sap stuff. They don't like it. And what you have in your jar, all that black stuff, is all soil, compost. It's all created by the worms. All of it. I did not put any dirt in my worm jar when I created it. The worms did it. Now you only have 2 worms, okay? And they'll probably multiply. Actually, Sky, you have 3 worms, okay? I started off with like 10 worms and then it turned into like 50 worms, okay? Because I had enough to give everybody like 3 worms, right? So that's what's going to happen if you want to keep and tend a worm jar for a while. All these things in here will turn into soil because the worms, and you're going to need more worms, which I do have coming. I do have more worms coming. They didn't send me my full order. They're going to be here in a couple of weeks. They contacted me. So I can send you more worms, okay, if you want to add worms to your worm jar. Because 2 worms, I mean, it's going to take an awful long time for 2 worms to even break down a sliver of a banana peel, okay? But it's a demonstration to let you know how miraculous and amazing worms actually are. Because if we didn't have worms, boy oh boy, would we have a big, horrible mess on our hands. Worms are the reasons why we have rich, beautiful soil and earth. All of our trash and litter and, all of the things that die in the forest and all of the leaves that fall from the trees, all the worms eat all of that stuff and create the soil for more plants and animals to grow. Plants to grow. Animals, not so much, but plants to grow. Okay? And you, if you do this, will be able to see that happen over time. So all you have to do, really, once you've got this going, and you can put a scoop of soil in there if you want to. It's fine. I mean, that's pretty much why I put the coffee grounds in there too, because they hold the moisture. And that it is a good idea to put soil in a worm jar. I'm just telling you, you don't have to. They'll create the soil themselves, but you won't have to babysit it as much, because the last thing you want is for this to dry out. If it dries out, then your worm's going to dry out. If your worm dries out, your worm can't breathe and it's going to die. Okay? And then you're just going to have a gross mess in your hand. So soil to put in here is a good idea, but it's not a need. I guess that's what I'm trying to point out here. Living things need food, water, air, and space. Everything, as long as they have those 4 things, everything else they can create themselves to live. Okay? So your job today is to attempt a worm jar if you can. Okay, I guess I'm not going to make it an absolute mandatory because you might not have the jar, you might not have the ability to go out and collect all the items or whatever that you need. But I do, if you're not going to actually create one, I sent a template home that has a drawing of a jar on it. And I would like you to draw the different things that you would put into your worm jar and label and write about those things on that sheet. Okay? If you actually make a worm jar, you don't have to do the worksheet, and you can just record yourself telling me about your worm jar. Alrighty? Fair enough? Okay. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Do play Happy Numbers today. Like I said, we have that free for the rest of the year, and it's really good for me to see what tasks and activities it's having you work on, so that way it kind of guides my instruction in the classroom. Like when I saw number bonds pop up a lot on Happy Numbers, I was like, oh, I'm going to do some instruction with number bonds. That's a really, really good idea, because I have like such limited space in this time in the classroom. So I could teach a gazillion things, but I really want to focus on things that they're doing. And if we have the Happy Numbers for free and this is what they're seeing in Happy Numbers, that's what I'm going to be teaching about. So, thank you. Keep it up. Talk to you later.